excited to be here to do
My
this.
name is Laura Foster.
Guitar player extraordinaire slash resident fun guy at Northside Baptist
Trio Quinn. I'm actually Charlie's cousin.
Will Baker.
Eddie Baines Blanton. I'm a junior at Lowndes High School.
Peterson. I'm a student at Lowndes High School.
All right, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you on today. If you can introduce yourself, and we'll just keep on going.
My name is Barrie Fitzgerald.
And so, what's your story?
So, my salvation came around a little late in life, right around 11th grade. I grew up in a very small church, and one of my best friends, around 97, we had a revival, and he went down and gave his life to Christ. And the pastor had said, hey, that's one less soul in hell.
Yeah.
So imagine your best friend just going there and it's like all of a sudden disappearing. So you're thinking, I'm supposed to be without my best friend. So I'm all in uncontrollably, and my parents finally get me calmed down. And because I grew up in the church, I was always there with the doors open because mom was a pianist and the organist. So I knew scripture, like head knowledge of scripture. And they constantly asked me, what was this scripture? What does this mean? What does this mean? I was able to repeat it. So I kind of went down, said I gave my life over to Christ and everything, just to be able to say one less soul going to hell.
Yeah.
Got baptized, but I really didn't have a come to Jesus moment until around 11th grade. We went to a youth conference in Macon, and the sermon just really hit home. It started making me realize how lost I was. That even though I grew up in church, I was lost.
Yeah.
And so me and the pastor had a talk, and I deferred baptism. I didn't want people at hometown church to think, oh, he really wasn't saved. He's not saved. He's just going with emotions. And it was around 2011 when I started having real battles.
Not to make you sound
obedience.
old, but whoa, that makes me. That's a long time ago for me.
I started having battles about, like, I'm not experiencing growth, and it was coming to the realization I wasn't really stepping in obedience and having salvation, baptism after salvation. And so I started talking to the pastor at the church and come to the realization that I needed to really take the first step in obedience and get baptized. And ever since then, it's just been light years ago.
Yeah, and I think that was I think one of the pastors from, not this past Bible conference, but the one before, that was one thing I didn't even realize that could be a possibility. It was, people do things the opposite way. And I didn't even realize that was a thing. Like, I thought, because I'd done it the right way, that everybody does it that way. It's like, oh, wait, so some people have gotten baptized, and then, or they've done it the opposite way. And I was like, well, I guess you could, and I'm glad they're getting on the right side of their salvation, but I'd never heard that before.
You just start realizing, like, I didn't want to upset parents and grandparents and family back home that, oh, so why didn't you go down the first time?
Yeah, they're like, oh.
Yes, it's
like,
a shock and awe moment.
Yeah.
You start to fear that, what they're going to think about you.
Right, and, I know for this past D-Now, Avery talked about it, was, when he stood up at D-Now, and because, of course, with him being so plugged in to the church, and it wasn't like we were judging him in any way, but it was just really like kind of shocking for us in that way of, you've been here for so long, and then he's like, well, I didn't feel like I was saved, and it's like, well, we were proud of you, but it was shocking at the same time for, like, out of all the people that got up, it's like, it's our drummer from the youth band, but that makes it even more special too, I think, because people know him and they care about him so much, but like at the same time I was like, well, would you look at that? I know somebody that's getting up, because there's a lot of kids that, when they come to those events like that, you might not even know who they are, but it's really special to see somebody that you do know.
And you just don't realize that your act of obedience may cause somebody else to come to salvation.
Exactly. I love it. So when it comes to Northside, how did you come here? Out of all the churches around?
So I came to Northside in 2015.
Okay.
So the prior church that I was at, they started moving toward a predestination belief, and I was always believed that whosoever shall come believes type of salvation. So I started struggling literally over a full year, arguing with God, saying, no, I'm not leaving this church. I can't. This is where my family's at. This is where people that I've made family. And so I was heavily plugged into the youth, teaching middle school, the drums there, and literally arguing with God over a full year. I'm not going to leave this church. And so it was draining, having to sit there and kind of argue with God and block off the sermons that were very predestination built sermons. So I literally was just tired, and I just phoned a friend, Allison Faircloth, and she was like, come to Northside. Come on, come. I was like, no, I can't leave. So earlier in 2015, I started hearing some good things about Northside. So I finally called her. She was like, look, come to the 8 o'clock service, then you go teach your middle school, and go to church at your church, and then we'll go have lunch. Came here and literally slipped into the back, thinking I could slip in and slip out during the welcome. I call it shaky do. Everybody shakes hands. She literally came and found me and made me come sit with her, and it was literally right behind
Go
Miss
Allison,
Laura.
yeah.
Came and sat right by Miss Laura. And so, like, for an entire year, Genesis 12 was on my mind where God had told Abraham to go, and I was literally arguing, not knowing that the passage Pastor Robbie was about to preach on was Genesis 12. And when he said, turn to Genesis 12, I was just like, okay, I give up. I'm going to follow in obedience. Like, it's just amazing how he had orchestrated, go, I need you to go. And I was arguing with him, and Pastor Robbie said, go. And so I literally had to take the next 2 weeks to digest everything, but also let them know, hey, I need to pull away from the music ministry. I have to pull away from the youth group there because I'm leaving the church.
Yeah.
So came here, and I literally gave this church a month, gave 2 other churches a month, and when I was at the other churches, it just did not feel like Northside. It did not feel like home. And then when I was in the second church, I was like, look, I can't give you a full month. I have to go back to Northside. It is Northside that I need to do that.
That is awesome. Like, that's crazy.
It was crazy how literally for an entire year, Genesis 12, and arguing, and Pastor Robbie, not even knowing who I was, said, let's turn to Genesis 12. Just a sermon.
And you bring up Allison. It's crazy to see how, because in the past, people brought up Drew, like how much God uses the Faircloths in so many different ways to get people here. Whoever they are, it's so cool.
So I knew Allison from, she used to be at the church, and then she had left that church and came here to Northside.
Yeah.
So I just reached out to a friend.
Because for me, the reason why I was at Wednesday, or the first time Wednesday nights, Drew invited me, and so it was like, there's, God's using these, using that family in so many different ways, and it's so awesome.
Like gold.
And for me too, when I became a Christian, to know that we had a assistant principal or an administrator, Matt Faircloth, that was a part, that was at my school and would stand for kids' faith if they ever got in trouble for it or whatever. I mean, there's never been that instance that I know of, but if there ever was, he would come to our defense. And that was just a nice thing to know that there's that there, because not every kid has that, or at every school they have that, and not even every school has an FCA they can go to. And that to me, FCA is so nice, and so awesome to have. And I'm like, you don't have an FCA at your school, you need to come to mine, because, but it's so nice to know that we have administrators like that, because especially, I could think of, these, northern states, and things like that, because, they're not in the Bible Belt as we are, and, they're a bit more they don't have those, values like that, and they don't get to hear the Bible or whatever, and it kind of is it makes me fortunate to know that what I have down here, Yes, it really does. And so, like you said, you came to Northside like that, but what got you into playing the drums? Because like you said, you did that at your other church, but...
So my path to drumming actually was very interesting. Music's always been in my life. I was a pianist and organist, so every time the door was open, I was there to hear her play the piano and organ, whether I wanted to be there or not. When it came to 6th grade band, I was actually played the trumpet from 6th grade to 12th grade. So went to honor bands and everything, trumpet.
Everybody's got the trumpet phase.
The trumpet is where it was at. Because you're a marching band, you're always the one that's heard.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school, and I put the trumpet down. It's this is really ego of me. I'm putting the ego down. And started focusing on what did I need to be for when I grow up. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I'm growing up.
Yeah.
Here I am, 38, trying to figure out what I'm going to be. And so I started focusing on my studies. And around 2008, Guitar Hero came out with World Tour and had a little drumming component to it. And started playing with it. And it's all right, this is kind of fun. I've never figured this would be a fun game. And so at the prior church, there was choir practice one day. They're like, our drummer's not here. We need somebody just to hit tempo, keep tempo for us. I was like, I play Guitar Hero. I got this.
Oh, no.
I get up there and I actually do really decent. And so afterwards, the worship leader comes to me and it's like, hey, if you'll practice, we'll eventually, if you get better, we'll add you to the rotation. So every Friday I would get off at work from VSU, meet them there at 4 o'clock and stay all the way to midnight practice.
Wow.
Grinding away at it. And literally that is how I fell in love with drums and playing them.
That's so awesome. And you do such a wonderful job. Like, I couldn't, I mean, because, not in my head, but like I know for some, they're just like, it seems easy because you're just hitting, you're hitting stuff with sticks, but like, there's a lot more to it than just that.
I know when Scoggins got here, so they used to live in the house over here.
Really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
The first year. And so, like, when Scoggins got here, and officially it just became me because the other drummer had left, he said, all right, it's you. And literally, they gave me a key. I would get off of work, come here and practice. And then it became a joke between Jeff and Christy and I that I was their part-time neighbor. Because I would always be here when they would get home from work.
Yeah.
And they would see the car, and all of a sudden, like, close to about 10 o'clock, I would be leaving.
Mm-hmm. So. And I mean, Noah's like that now. Like, I mean, it's funny if you look at go to look at Northside and search it up on Google Earth and go to Street View. His car is sitting in the parking lot. I'm like,
and every time I still come to practice, his car is here.
Yeah. See, there's always one person that's always here, and pretty soon I'm sure, like, if I get a vehicle myself, you'll see my vehicle in the parking lot probably late at night or something. But what do you do for a job, and how have you seen God work through it?
So at VSU, my official title is the Deputy Chief Officer for Research and Analysis. It's a big old fancy title. For how I explain it to people is, have you ever seen the episode of Friends where they're betting the apartment versus the chicken and the duck?
Yeah.
And where there was a question is, what is Chandler Bing's job? Rachel Green, like, she is so excited she said transponster.
Transponster.
So essentially that is what I say, and Matt Fairclough busts out. Every time I introduce myself that way, like when we go around Sunday school and saying, what do we do for a living? I'm like, I'm a transponster. But it's essentially my office. It's we have two components of it. We have institutional research and we have the student CRM management. So basically what we do is help the president, vice presidents, the deans, and the department heads make decisions based off of data. We do all the projections of what is upcoming enrollment on top of doing all the federal, national, local reporting. So we have a large responsibility. The way I see it working, how God has placed me there, is not only to help students get into their next career of their destiny, but also to reach out to my colleagues. Every other week, I have two groups that I rotate between, and it's just reaching out to them, encouraging them, asking, how can I pray for you? And literally, there's a colleague, we have become brother and sister, and literally, we check up on each other, like, how are you doing? Like, what is the scripture you're sharing today? How can I pray for you? Like, we literally just sit there and start praying.
That's awesome.
It's just amazing to see how that right there, even with my boss, he's in there, and it's like, how can I pray for you?
That's great.
And so it's just amazing to see how prayer has literally started changing our mindsets.
And, it's not in the question list, but, because Shadley, does he work there too at VSU?
Yes.
So is that how, like, between Northside and VSU, is that how you guys have become such good friends? Or?
So we actually became good friends here at Northside. When I first got into worship ministry here at Northside, we just all started clicking.
Yeah. And, I was like, it was funny. I just figured it out, I think, when you shared his episode. I'm like, they must be really good friends or something. There's no way they're not. But
he is golden.
Yeah.
He is a genuine friend.
And what's really funny was, I hope I'm not getting this wrong because I know she's going to listen to this episode. But my mom, I think, went to school with his mom. And so it's like, and there's all these little connections like that I found, like, for example, Scott Willis, that's, so they went, like, he's one of the security people on Sundays that he'll, like, and is volunteering for that. And I went to school with his son, Eli Willis, and then, she went to school with him, and I was like, well, my gosh, and there's all these little connections like that, and it's so cool.
So I just found out, like, my dad happened at graduation at VSU. My dad happened to stumble across somebody he knew from Irwinville, Georgia, where I grew up.
Yeah.
So he told me about it, not realizing that I had been working with his colleague all the time. So I was just orientation Thursday, we had time to talk, and she was just like, did not realize that I did this, and then like we were literally neighbors, and now we're here working together. So it's just, you just don't realize people around you and the connections you have.
I had a similar situation happen recently. We had, it's like Lowndes did these legacy letters, we got the envelopes and everything. Well, I got one, and I was like, her name was like Shanae Worthy. I don't know if you know who that is, but she goes to Northside here.
Yes.
And we were like, But at the time we were like, who is that? Like, we weren't sure because I think she's, sits in the back, but, we weren't sure who she was. We go to Walmart to pick something up. Well, it turns out my mom goes up to this lady and she's like, do you go to Northside? And then, we were asked if she gave us that later and it wasn't her. But then we just said bye and whatever. Well, come to find out, that was Shanae's mother. And I was like, no way, that's crazy. I was like, that is so funny. And then she even brought up the podcast too. And I was like, well, that's just crazy. I was like, it's crazy what a small world we live in too, and how there's connections like that. It just blew me away, And not to mention too that she gave me that letter and she had the time to sit down and write one, even though she had never met me ever, like at all, But now we know each other and it's great, So, what's your favorite part about NBC? To work, like working in NBC or playing the drums, all that.
There's so much. Like when you gave me this question, like I could have chosen going to the conventions when Robbie was the president and playing for those. But it's actually the point of view of worship. Like nobody gets my seat,
right? And
actually hear the amazing things in my ears, but also seeing. I absolutely love it when Jess Coggins just worships and he just throws his hands up and like, he is belting out, the microphone's away, and seeing him worship, but also seeing the congregation engaging, basically just letting their hearts go and just worship God. So that is my actual favorite part of playing the drums, is watching people engage in worship. Plus also seeing their head bobs with the music going.
It's like,
if there's no head bob, it's like, they're not feeling the vibe of the song. And then all of a sudden I'll look out there and Miss Janine is just like this, standing up in the back. Her and her sister are just standing up in the back and worshiping. And then all of a sudden it'll just catch the wire fire. Everybody will be singing.
I mean, there's just some songs that just like, because I've said this before, like, before I didn't sing in the choir. But now that I, because I'm not saying that, like, if you don't sing in the choir, like, it's a less, like, experience, right? But, like, when you're singing in the choir, like, I'm more focused on God than I am, like, if I'm in the congregation. Like, because I'll normally sit with my friends or whatever, which is fine. It's great. But, they tend, they might distract you or whatever. But if I'm just up in the congregation, or up in the choir, loft, I'm singing my heart out,
Y'all sing, like, it is just amazing from 2019 to now how the choir has progressed. Like, it's amazing to hear it in my ears, even though I can't see y'all one bit, just to hear y'all. So I can't even see when y'all are ramping up. I have to hear y'all ramping up. And then it's like we get in a feedback loop. I started ramping up, and the choir ramps up, and the band ramps up. And it's just everything working together just to glorify God. Like, even like when I think it was a Bible conference, there was one pastor, I swore he was about to go running around the church. The song was that good. I think it was Fear of the Lord.
That might have been.
And I thought he was about to get up and have a fit.
It might have been.
The song was so powerful.
I feel like it might have been HB maybe, or I thought it might have been HB or Kenny Grant.
I even swear sometimes where Pastor Robbie's about to get up and have a fit. Like he gets so, just seeing how he gets into worship and getting ready to stand up there to preach.
And that's another thing too that is such an advantage for me standing up in the choir loft, is getting to watch our pastors, worship too. Like, because I'm on the guy side, so I see Pastor Robbie, every time, and then Noah sits kind of near up me, so I can see him, and it's like so cool to watch. Those two pastors and everybody else, and Miss Laura too. She gets into it as much as anybody.
I think she beats him up standing up.
Yeah, and I mean, and what's crazy too is like he's sitting there preparing these sermons, maybe weeks in advance, right? But she is still taking notes just like anybody else is, and it is so awesome to see. Like
she's tuned in. Even like when I do sit in there for the first service and the second service, she's still in the second service, locked in, glued, still taking notes. It's just amazing to see even her sitting there learning from her husband.
Yeah, I mean, because you think like, I'm sure they've talked about the sermons, like and all that. I'm sure like she doesn't have as much to learn because they've probably talked about it. Oh no, she's writing stuff. I didn't realize she writes them both. Like I thought, that is crazy. Go Miss Laura. Like, that is awesome. That's awesome to hear. But when it comes to the youth today, and you can put college in here as well, do you see hope, or are you worried about the future?
I see a lot of hope. There's a little worry. A lot of hope. I mean, just watching. So being able to play the music, having to play for D-Nows and everything.
Yeah.
How y'all worship, y'all abandon everything. Y'all go at it. It is an amazing sight to see. How how y'all worship, not only through singing, but when it comes time for that intercessory prayer, when one goes, y'all just all flock around them. And just to sit there and pray for each other.
Yeah.
It is amazing to see. The one worry is that you're going to hit those roadblocks. And you're going to know, how do I stand? And I hope that your foundation is so strong that when you hit the roadblock, you still can stand firm.
That's good. Yeah, and like I do want to ask, did you feel us when we were, or could you like hear anything? We were jumping when we were.
So we weren't asked. Me and Leigh actually had that D-now off.
Okay. So that's right. You were. That's right. Because like, dude, I'm telling you, I was so tired. Like I was like.
Because when y'all did it for the Sunday. And y'all started jumping. I was like, what are y'all doing? Like, what? No, you don't jump in this song. And I was like, oh, we almost have done this for D now.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just threw me off. It's like, y'all are jumping. Like,
well, no, because then like the next, I think, then like we had the youth up for something else. Like, or, Jeff wanted the youth along with the adults there. And they were like, if we can get enough youth in there, you can jump for that song again. But I was like, we ain't got to if you don't want that.
And every once in a while, wasn't it Glorious Day, I think?
Yeah.
And so when we play it, you start seeing the youth, they'll just bob up.
Yeah. I've done that. I've done that every so often. Like, but I'll say the first time, like the first service, because we sang for both, and the first time I didn't jump as hard because I'm up on that top row up there, and I was like, it'd be a domino effect if I fall down here. Like that, I'm not rolling like that. And then like for the second one, I got on that front down there where there's the ledge right there, and so what I did to like, get myself out of the air more, I like pushed up on that ledge right there, and I was flying. I was like Mario up here. I was like, boing.
Yeah, it's really good to see how y'all worship. Like, as everybody keeps saying, you're the next generation. You are the current generation. Like, you're a part of the generation.
Yeah, because there's already one
you're going to
after us.
The next generation up, and it's just to see how y'all not only even on Sundays, y'all are sitting there taking notes during the sermons. Just to see the hope that y'all have and have built. Noah and the prior youth pastors have built within this church to grow the church. Think of what was it Robbie said when he first got here? There's like 10 people, and now it's grown, and the foundation that was just laid is very hopeful, and it builds up that hope.
And I know that we've had, I think it's kind of slowed down a little bit because it's been summer, but like, this last little few times when school was still in, we had over 100 kids in that room down there. And this was like continuous. It was like, for a few nights or a few Wednesdays, and I was like, that is crazy. I mean, these kids could spend, spend their Wednesdays any other time, because this is after school. We've already had a long school day and everything, but they decided to come here and hear preaching, hear worship, and it's so refreshing to see, because there's a lot of things in this world that can make you worry, but when you look at that, you're like, okay, I'm hopeful now, that these are going to be the ones that are going to lead us, and lead this country.
Even the starting of the youth band, it's just...
And that's grown a lot.
Now Avery's getting confident to step into the cage and play.
Yes, I saw that.
I was sitting back with Miss Janine, and Miss Janine was like, aren't you playing? I was like, no, it's Avery. And I'm just sitting there beaming, just watching him play.
Yeah.
And just seeing him play for the first time for a congregation.
That was really cool. I was like, I'm so glad he got to do that.
Yes.
And too, for me, like, because my friend Baines, he's in the youth band too, and he plays the guitar. And it's like so cool to watch people I know, and watch them, they've grown, and see them up there, even if it's on a Wednesday night, because we have so many singers and guitarists and all, we have to rotate out, which that's such a good problem to have. Like, there's...
Which is really good, because they're going to be the next ones that step on stage and actually lead in worship.
Like, I think we have at least 2 people that play the keys, and they got to alternate, and there's about 2 to 3, maybe 4 guitarists they've got to alternate from, and then, so I think we have 1 electric and 1, yes, I was about to say I couldn't think of the word acoustic, but they alternate out. And that's so cool to see, because people, that way they get a break some, and then now we just need another drummer, somebody that's like aspiring to be another drummer, because Avery's been on it, I think, since day one.
I think it's amazing to watch his skill. I remember, there was a D now, he reached out to me. It's like, hey, I got some questions about the drums. I think it was him, and so all of a sudden he started playing, and then I was like, hey, come over here. I think Terry and Miss Leslie got here early, and so he was just sitting there. I was like, hey, come sit on the drum set and play. He was like, on your drum set. And so, like, he was playing, and you could tell he was getting nervous. I was like, just hit it as hard as you can. And he hit it. I said, is that the hardest you can? He finally hit it. I said, now did it break? He's like, no. I said, no, play. Play. And then he started playing, and so the more he played, plays, the better his skills have gotten. You start to see the confidence build.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen, just from that D now, I've seen like just him grow, and it's so cool to see. And he's a lot more, at least in the youth group for me. He's very talkative in the youth group. Now, I don't know. I guess it maybe just depends, on who's talking to, but he's really, he's really grown in that, like not being like a shy kid. And I've seen that in multiple kids too. They kind of come out of their shells, at Northside, and it's really cool to see. Not
to
just
see him play the tenors. Like I got to go to the Winter Guard. Concert they did for the audience, and just to see him play and going from the cymbals to all the way over, now he's in charge of the quads. It's amazing to see his plugging in and growing.
Right.
Music.
That's so awesome. If you could describe NBC in one word, what would it be and why? Now this right here, this has always got people are like, what? Like, they're it gets them thinking.
This is a tough one. There's 2 one words.
Okay. Just go with it.
The first one is family.
Yeah.
Because when I was leaving my prior church, the part of the arguing with God about whether I should leave church was I was going to lose my family that I had built there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I have to uproot everything and leave them all behind.
Yeah.
And go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing that when I had gotten here, and this was where God had me, that God was going to exponentially grow my family.
Mm-hmm.
I can't count on the number of times I have relied on so many people at this church, just going through the whole dissertation writing, just the vent, the ladies on the front row. I love those ladies, the woodwinds. They are like my sisters, and I always pick at them, leave them like. So the dad jokes always occurred on the little itinerary. I would leave them little dad jokes.
Yeah.
They would just roll their eyes. And,
They just like,
Barrie.
Barrie.
They literally have become like big sisters to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Faircloths, Matt and Lindsay and Allison and the family has literally become brothers and sisters that have never had, because I grew up as an only child.
Mm-hmm.
For like Devon and Miss Janine and Deneen, they check up on me. Like for people to really just, this place, you become family with so many people.
Mm-hmm.
That is unreal. Now,
Yeah.
The other word is joy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know what it is. You can have the worst day, whether it's at work or school or just in your personal life. When you walk through these doors and you see the first person, you just get this overwhelming sense of joy that just makes you forget about your bad day.
Yeah, and I can 100%, contest to that. I can tell you that is so true, because there's been a few times, especially like maybe like a Wednesday, I was at school or whatever, and it just was not the best day. I might have made bad on a test or something or whatever, and I'm just not having it. Well, then I walk through those doors and see the people that I've been looking forward to see all day, and mood just changes right then.
Correct. There are days, like especially Wednesdays, I'm like, can I just fast forward, just to get to bed?
Yeah.
And then come in and just during worship practice, we
Mm-hmm.
just start talking, and just the laughter and everything just fades away.
Yeah, and my mom sees it too, because if she comes and gets home from school or whatever and sees that I've had an off day or whatever, but then we go and she's like, well, that's what you needed, huh? I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I needed,
It's just amazing
yeah.
how the body here, we support each other and lift them up.
Yeah.
And just the joy we exude to others.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, just a shout out to Pastor Robbie, like how involved he is with his congregation and what he, how much he cares. Like, he's responsible on social media, and like I've got his number. He's responsive to text messages, things like that. Like he cares about his people.
He does.
Because I know that some churches they don't have that. Not everyone does, and it's so cool to see that. And he's such a down to earth person. Like, I've just talked with him, like, because I've worked up here.
Laura.
Yes, both of them. They're like sometimes I got them. It's like, hey, they're people too. Like, it was funny. Like the other day, like I saw him. I thinking like. El Torreo, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Pastor Robbie. Like, because like that, but that was the first time I'd seen him anywhere else except for Northside. I'm not even joking. And I've been here for 2 years. I was like,
It kind of throws you off. I think I took my coworkers out to lunch one day, and we went to Big Nick's, not knowing when we sat down right across from us was Pastor Robbie, Jeff, and I think Noah. When they got up, they just, hey, Barry, da da da, and they just started talking like, y'all, like this is Barry, like he goes to Northside. He said, what church y'all go to? He's like, he's a good person, and then it's like, I'll let y'all go. So it's just amazing to see even any of the pastoral staff here outside of this building and what I like to call real world, the marketplace.
yeah.
Just to see them and seeing how they engage with people.
Mm-hmm. And I think probably the most. I think I've probably seen Noah the most out of anybody. Like because like at Wild Adventures or something, like they would go for like there was like a conference or something, like a Christian conference or something. And me and Mom just went to walk around, and we saw like I don't know, about maybe 10 church like people from here, and I was like, and because we were like, what's going on? Because there's like there wouldn't be this many people we know at Wild Adventures at one time, and they were like, oh, there's a Christian conference going on, and I was like, oh, well, we just happened to come on the day and just walk around, but it was so cool that we saw David Williams, we saw Noah, and we like saw some other people too, and I was like, well, that's just crazy that we got here on that day, huh? Like it was really cool, and it's like. Because you always wonder, like, I'm not saying they would ever would, but, you always wonder, like, how do the staff act outside? Like, is it just like, they put their church face on and then they, they act differently outside of church, but these guys, they don't.
Yeah, what you see at church is what you get outside.
Right, and that's what I tell people all the time about me. What you see is what you get. Like if I'm a little bit crazy, then that's what you're gonna get, because I ain't changing the way I am. So, from final question, what is your life verse and why is it so important to you? I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit if it's the same one, but.
So I actually have two. My life verses actually have changed as I go through different seasons of my life. The first one is 1 Timothy 1:5. The aim of our charge is love that issues from a pure heart, good conscience, and a sincere faith. Mm-hmm. As I've been elevated into leadership positions at BSU, it's just a reminder that everything I need to do needs to be issued from love, that self-sacrificing. What can I do that is still serving God, but still doing the best thing that I can do, but also reflecting back, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Mm-hmm. The other one is John 13:7. Jesus answered them, "What I am doing now, you don't understand, but afterwards you will." It's just a reminder, whatever you're going through, it may not understand it right now. It may take 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years before you truly understand what actually God had been doing. Mm-hmm. So it's just two verses. One is about how my leadership should be for BSU and for others, but also what I'm going through or whatever you're going through. There is a reason why you're going through it.
That's good. That's really good. But that's all the questions I have. But is there any words of encouragement, anything you want to say or anything before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you so much. You are doing awesome. I absolutely love every single podcast.
Thank you, man.
I can't wait to Fridays for it to drop.
Hey!
I did not realize you had dropped it this morning because I woke up a little bit earlier. But as soon as I realized at lunch, it's like I listened to it during lunch.
Yeah, man. It's like my friend Vance. He's like, "It's podcast." Like he texts me. He's like, "It's podcast Fridays." Yeah. And it cracks me up because before I just released them on any random kind of day that I felt like it, and I was like, I should start releasing them on a day that one people like, two it gets people on the schedule. So I release them on Fridays, and then because my mom, she'll be like, "Can I get a sneak peek of the episode?" I'm like, "No, you get to hear it when everybody else does," because I bet you she'll be asking if I start telling her stuff about this one. She'll be like, "Can I get a sneak peek?" I'm like, no, you got to listen like every. Well, I'll tell her stuff, but I'm not gonna play it, and then she'll be like, oh, "How dare you?" I'm like, "Well, hey, you got to listen like everybody else does," and but I always like to mess with her about that.
Let her know when you post it.
I do. Oh yeah, I do. Well, she knows they come out every Friday. So
when you post it, do you say "Hey, I just posted," or do you let her find out?
Oh, she knows when I'm messing around with, and I'll tag her in it, just to show her, because she knows people that I have no idea who they are, so yeah, I do. But man, I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm so glad that I've gotten to know more about you, and I can't wait to see what God does with it.
Same with you, man.
Yep. With another episode of the Young Minds Podcast coming to a close, I just want to remind you that you are never alone, and faith is action. So let's get out there.